All right, boys, we're going to look at the last exercise in this topic, which is equation problems. Now, these will take practice, and we're going to do this over 2 lessons. First of all, some important facts. This will come up during this exercise. Consecutive numbers, you may have heard of these before, they increase by ones. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are consecutive numbers. 10, 11, 12, 13, etc. They're consecutive numbers because they increase by 1. So in consecutive numbers, if you let the first number be n, then the next number has to be 1 more than that, and the next number after that has to be 1 more than that. Okay? So consecutive numbers can be represented by n, n plus 1, n plus 2, and so on. They just keep going up by ones. Integers, you saw these back in year 7. These are all the positive and negative numbers, including 0. Now, an even number is of the form 2n, where n is some integer. Okay, so if you think of 2, 4, 6, 8, these are all even numbers. All of these numbers can be written as a product of 2, can't they? We'll call it 2n. This is 2 times 1. This is 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. So all even numbers are of the form 2 times some number. Let's call it n, okay, or just 2n. An odd number, well, odd numbers are like 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. And all odd numbers of this form, 2n plus 1 or 2n minus 1, where n is an integer. So if I substitute n equals, say, 0 in for this one, I get 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. There you go, there's the first odd number. If I put n equals 1 into this formula here for 2n plus 1, 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. There's my second odd number. If I put in n equals 2, I get 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. There's my third odd number. So 2n plus 1 can generate all the odd numbers. And so can 2n minus 1. Okay, but if you're going to use this one, 2n minus 1, you want to start off with n equals 1. Okay, and then you'll generate all the odd numbers. Now, this exercise also requires you to know some facts from before that you've seen. The angle sum of a triangle is 180 degrees. That'll come up in one of the questions. And alternate angles and parallel lines are equal. So you can see here I've got a pair of parallel lines, and you can see here that the alternate angles are equal. All right, now here's our method. We use a pronumeral to represent the unknown quantity. We underline keywords and replace them with symbols if possible. We draw a diagram if needed. We write an equation involving one pronumeral only. That makes things easier. Solve the equation, or that should be solve the equation, solve the equation, then answer the question. All of these should have full stops, of course. Okay, so this method will make more sense once we do a question. So let's go on to question 1. All right, first, let's have a read of this. When 3/4 of a number is decreased by 8, the result is 46. What is the number? Well, step number 1 in my method is to use a pronumeral to represent the unknown quantity. Well, this is the quantity I've got to find. So let's call it n, a number, or you could call it x if you wanted to. Now, next step is to underline keywords and replace them with symbols if I can. So 3/4 can be replaced by 3/4 of a number. Now my number is n, and of means multiply, doesn't it? Okay, so 3/4 of n is decreased by 8. Decreased is subtract. And 8, well, that's already there. Now, for the result, another word for the result is equals. And then we have 46. Okay? So I can now see that I've got an equation that I can write down. It's going to be 3/4 of a number, so 3/4 of n, subtract 8 is equal to 46. And the question is, what is n? Well, now you are going to solve that equation. Okay, so we're going to add 8 to both sides. So that's 3/4 n is equal to 54. Right, and then next you want to get rid of that fraction. So times by 4, times by 4. Cancel numerator with denominator. We've got 3n is equal to 216. And then last of all, we have division by 3. So divide by 3, divide by 3, cancel that. And you're left with n is equal to, okay, so get your calculator out, 216 divided by 3 should be 72. There we go. So if you look at the method, we used a pronumeral to represent the unknown quantity. Yes, we did. There was my pronumeral that I used to represent the unknown quantity. And then checking my method, I underline keywords. Here we go, and I replaced them with symbols. Yes, I did. I didn't need to draw a diagram, but I wrote an equation involving one pronumeral only. I solved the equation. Then I'm going to check that I've answered the question. The question is, what is the number? Now, sometimes when you solve the equation, you still haven't actually answered the question. So checking that, what is the number? Well, the number was n. I have answered the question, which is n is 72. Okay, so copy that down if you didn't get that correct. And let's have a look at question 2. There we go, there's the solution. Okay, question 2. So let's follow the same steps as we did last time. All right, now a rectangle is 3 times as long as it is wide. If its perimeter is 60 centimeters, find its dimensions. Now dimensions typically will be its length and its width. Okay, so if I was to draw a rectangle, all right, so length and width, or its base and its height. So you could say base here and height here. All right, so we've got to find the base and the height of the rectangle. Now, what pronumerals? Because step number 1, it says use a pronumeral to represent the unknown quantity. Okay, so I could use, if you like, base and height. So let's just do that temporarily. So B and H. The only trouble is I don't want to use 2 different pronumerals. I'd rather just use one, okay, because it makes it easier. So let's temporarily, or let's just draw another rectangle. Okay, so let's just click my pen tool here. Here we go. All right, so let's just draw another rectangle. So I'm not going to use base and height. I want to use different letters or just one pronumeral. So it says a rectangle. So drawing the rectangle is 3 times as long as it is wide. So let's just say that this is the length and this is the width. Okay, so it says it's 3 times as long as it is wide. Okay, so that means the length must be 3 times the width. Okay, because it says it's it's 3 times as long as it is wide. Okay, so we've got one pronumeral now, which is the main thing. Now, if you define everything in terms of one pronumeral, then we are good to go to sort out the equation. Okay. Now, just double check that everything's looking good. So, in essence, what I'm going to do is just have 3W and W. I'm not going to worry about the length. So, let's just, for the sake of our working out here, when you do this in the test, you don't draw one rectangle. So, this is the width, and this length here is 3W. So, I've just used one pronumeral. Okay. Now, it tells me that the perimeter is 60 centimeters. Okay, so I've got to work out an algebraic expression for the perimeter. Now, I know that if this side is 3W, then the opposite side must be 3W as well. And this side is W, and this side must be W as well. So the perimeter is all the sides added together, and that is equal to 60. So I know that when I add W plus 3W plus W plus 3W, I get 60. So if I'm looking at the underlining the words, which I should have done there, 3 times means 3 multiplied, doesn't it? Yep. So there's my equation, and it's all in terms of one pronumeral. You don't want to have W's and L's into the one equation. It makes it harder. So let's just have a look at what we can do next. These are all W's. I can simplify this. W plus 3W plus W plus 3W. That is 8W, which is equal to 60. Okay, and then we want to solve that equation. So we're going to divide through by 8. So if you look at our technique that we've used in this, we've actually drawn a diagram. And if you work that out, that's going to give you 7.5, and that's centimeters. Now, we've solved the equation, we drew a diagram, we've done all the steps. We've got to check now we've answered the question. It says find its dimensions. So dimensions will be the base and the height, or the length and the width. So we've already got the width, which is one of the dimensions. We need to know the length. The length is 3W. So what I'm going to do then is say, therefore, length is equal to 3 times 7.5 centimeters, which equals 22.5 centimeters. So there I've worked out the dimensions now. I've got the width, and I've also got the length. Okay, so I've answered the question. So that last step there that we did was the final bullet point in the method called answering the question, because many people will stop here because they solved the equation, but they won't go all the way, because remember, you've got to check in the question. You go back to the question and think, have I answered the question? The question was, what are the dimensions? Okay, so copy that down. And then we will have a look at question 3 now. Now, question 3, it says the sum. So if we go through our steps here, the sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 150. Find the numbers. Find the numbers. Okay, so let's have a look. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers. Sum is plus. Now, consecutive numbers, we know what they look like. If the first number is n, then the second consecutive number is n plus 1. And the third consecutive number is n plus 2. Okay, so there is 3 consecutive numbers. Now it says the sum, which is plus. When I add these 3 numbers together, okay, so I'm adding together, it says that the result of that is 150. So there's my equation. Notice I've written the equation down in terms of one pronumeral n. Okay, now we can solve that. So we're going to simplify. N plus n plus n is 3n. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. Take 3 from both sides. 3n is equal to 147. And then 147 divided by 3 is equal to 49. So let's divide both sides by 3. And you'll get n is equal to 49. Now, if you stop there, you wouldn't get full marks, because think about our method. The last step in our method is answer the question. Have we answered the question? It says find the numbers, not the number. Now, there's 3 numbers we've got to find. One of them we've found, that's the n. The other 2, n plus 1 and n plus 2, we haven't found. So I'm going to say, therefore, n plus 1 is equal to 50, and n plus 2 is equal to 51. So therefore, I can say 49, 50, and 51 are the numbers. Now, some of you will be very good at solving these equations without doing any algebra. So I know that some of you, when you are faced with these questions, some of you can work out those 3 numbers without doing any equations. You can do it through trial and error. Okay? If you do that, I will ask you to do the exercise again, because the whole purpose of this is to teach you how to solve a worded problem using equations. Okay, so if I just see the answers, because you've done some number crunching on the calculator, good on you, but you'll be asked to do the exercise again. So make sure you do all the steps exactly the way that I've done them.